Good afternoon, beloveds. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is an honor, as always, and a privilege to spend my Sunday with you. I'm so excited. You get just me today, no special guests. God could have put it on my heart. He gave me this beautiful message. I start out each and every day, and I say, God, I am your conduit. Please Please move through me, be the light that moves through me for our beautiful community. What can I be doing to help all of those around the world that are being subjected to this injustice? I just care so much for each and every one of you, and I pray for you each and every day. And instead of going into news first, I'm going to start out with a prayer. Let's start out there today. Dear God, universe, we are open to receiving everything that is meant for us. We are your humble servants. We are your chosen heroes. We all believe in your power, God, to create the miracles in our life. That what is impossible becomes possible because God intervened. So we stand on your promise, God. And we trust that what we desire is on our way to us right now because, God, we know that you know what's on our hearts and what we need and what we desire. And, God, we are so grateful for everything that is unfolding in our lives right now. It is just the testimony and the proof of what God is possible. God can move those mountains. So he asks for us to, when we're struggling with that mountain and those Goliaths, to just release it over to him. Let him do the heavy lifting while we focus on what we need to be doing, which is spreading the truth and the awareness of what is going on in this world that is not being spoken about. I also have had several requests since we came into this prayer, and I also pray for God to protect us and give us guidance in these days ahead, because these are trying times. There's a lot of emotion all over the place. The general public is coming into, introduction of this deception. These federal workers are losing their jobs. There's all this upheaval of emotion. So God is wanting us to stay centered and focused on him and what is important for us as a community, which is to spread the truth and the waves of awareness and light. And he will do the heavy lifting for us. He will provide us protection. He will provide us direction. Just do what it is asked of us that this time is to spread those waves of awareness, because the ground is ripe for this information to be released. I have had several people write and request that I provide the freedom from deception prayer, which I think is a very, very good one for these times. And the prayer for deception goes like this. God, today I take a stand against any deception coming against my body through words, frequencies, and technologies that are trying to root themselves in my life. I bind deception right now in your name. I reject any attempt to get me to buy into a lie. I ask that every veil be removed from my eyes, that I will not be blinded by opinions, thoughts, and ideas of what comes against me, but I will know the true voice of God. I stand on your word that you set the captives free, and I declare today that I am free of all deception and manipulation. In your name I pray. Amen. And I will publish this on the Chosen Heroes X page. If you want me to email it to you, please reach out to chosen_heroes@proton.me. So now I'm going to get into the week in review for targeted justice. Got some good information to share here. Okay, so again, digital warriors, keep up the great work of spreading awareness on social media. Remember to include images and documents published by Targeted Justice. You can get that information on their social media platforms or targetedjustice.com. Share the newsletter if you subscribe in the content of it. It only takes a few minutes of the day to keep those flames of awareness just waving out for the general public to see. And Targeted Justice does need some volunteers for important project work. We need digital warriors in Australia and New Zealand as well. So write to tjustice2@proton.me with the subject line of volunteer. Kash Patel was confirmed this week. Kash mentioned a number of people have been subjected to illegal surveillance, 275,000 in 1 year. This number is very close to the 300,000 U.S. citizens Targeted Justice has been talking about for a while. And excuse my typos on this slide. I'm seeing them. The OCD in me is coming out. So I digress. Getting back to Kash Patel stating the massive declassification will be amongst his team's top priorities. Mining to release troves of information previously shielded from the public. So that is good. And we need to be a part of that. So we need to be that squeaky wheel saying, don't forget we are here, and just keep fanning that flame, beloveds. The Department of Justice has a protocol grant worth $750,000 to study Havana syndrome. Dr. Lynn Burr announced this finding this week. The study uses a source of electromagnetic radiation, which will result in an exposure profile that is likely comparable to that which our embassy personnel received. Okay, so that tells me it's civilian. Okay. What we've learned is, number one, the U.S. government has a source of directed electromagnetic pulsed energy that causes the Havana syndrome and its anomalous health incidents. The U.S. government, number two, doesn't want anyone to see the results of this study. Number three, civilians and children are affected by the debilitating and brain-degrading Havana syndrome, and the government wants to sweep those diagnosed cases under the rug. Lots of investigative work, sweat, effort, and perseverance went into this project to break through the layers of silencing and bureaucracy. It's just a sliver of what Targeted Justice is doing day in and day out for each and every one of us. And Targeted Justice wrote Pete Hegseth requesting to declassify the research to the public. On that note, Secretary State Marco Rubio knows and acknowledged this week that some external mechanism caused the symptoms of Havana syndrome. And you can refer to Targeted Justice's newsletter dated 2/21 for a video clip of his statement and additional good information. Also, the CIA has announced and plans for the largest mass firing in nearly 50 years. And we hope that the criminals that participate in what is being done against us is going to be swept out with that. And so there is the week in review. So we're going to move on to the message that I was given. And I'm telling you, when I sat down at the keyboard, it was just like a river flowing. And it was just God just, moving through me onto the page as I typed it out. So I'm going to read it because I could barely keep up with everything that was flowing in the moments. So I want to bring up an image. Well, let's go to the next slide. The whole gist of this podcast today is staying centered in the storm. We must remain focused on our inner healing and taking action steps daily that is favorable and measurable toward our health and well-being and mental state. And we don't need to be listening to the V2K. Fears die if we don't feed them. And fear is what these programs thrive on as a form of a mind control and manipulation to keep you tethered to the program, right? Being that digital warrior for the community and sharing the content, the memes, the images, the diagrams that are containing, targeted justice website information that explain the covert technologies and targeting programs. This campaign of awareness is imperative to force recognition and acknowledgement onto the mass population. And we must remain optimistic, okay, and open of how the targeting programs will be revealed. Often God will surprise us in the most unexpected ways in revealing this darkness. Okay, so I'm going to add up a diagram and I'm going to go into the guided word that I received. So you can see that right now we are in a perfect storm of distraction. Okay. So I'll get into, as I read through what I have for you today, what the different coloring is. The blue and the green and the red, right? So it's the proverbial, iceberg. Only a fraction has been introduced recently. But then we got the, kind of right at that surface, below the surface level of items. And then we've got all that stuff down at the red. And you notice how I put an image of the brain and a target there, because this is where we sit, is down below in those sub layers underneath the surface, right, of that iceberg. Okay. So the world is in a tailspin as of late. From moment to moment, we are waiting for the next deception to be revealed. For targeted individuals who have long since understood what daily life is like behind the veil that the majority of the world is oblivious to, these deceptions are really no surprise to us, what we've been revealed, in terms of the mass public. We ask ourselves as targeted individuals daily, when will these revelations lead to the announcement of the covert programs the government agencies have held close to the cuff that are being done to us? When are they going to be revealed? When will mass media finally pick up our stories about our imploded lives and the torture we have been subjected to? What has been revealed to date seems almost like a carrot dangling before the general public's nose, gently guiding, leading them into the rabbit hole, right? But Alice asked the white rabbit, where does the hole go? What's down there? All that is happening is the perfect storm of distraction away from the reality of the government's experimentation on humans. a disguised attempt to build trust with cherry-picked morsels of deception revealed so that the transhumanism, global control, surveillance can slide in under the radar and set the stage. It's come to my attention through God that not all that is revealed is done in transparency. There can be tentacles or an agenda attached to them. This is why, beloved community, we must stay centered in the chaos unfolding. We must remain open, objective, and continue our goals, which is to bring mass awareness. The recent events displayed in this diagram that are marked in blue are what the general public are now made aware of. And some of those, we have yet to know what that will entail, right? Like these classified documents. Hopefully it will be truly declassified and not a bunch of black marks on the paper that is the normal of what declassified has meant in the past. So, and then we go on into the green, which are topics that kind of have been, sporadically like sprinkled at us in the beginning that made us and the general public aware and, kind of like a gentle introduction, but we have yet to learn more. Like, it's been out there that, COVID was manufactured in a lab. There's poisons in our food and the chemtrails and the crypto coin and mNRA and AI and all of that. We're just kind of dropped right there. So meanwhile, we're still circulating in wildfires and plane crashes and orbs and the fog and the dismantling of government offices and Fort Knox. Does it have any gold? Government deceptions revealed. P. Diddy, Epstein list, RFK, MLK, 911 declassified. All that circulating. Still waiting, right? So the red is our reality, right? It's still dark right now, and it's the hidden programs and then in the injustices being done in clear sight that only a few chosen or rare groups know exist. And, I put the image of the targeted brain there because, it's very alluding to what is going on, which is the PSYOP programs, which, we're part of that, and mass surveillance and HARP, the directed energy weapon, used for weather modulation. These are all things that you can Google and put a patent to. Transhumanism, the smart dust with the little special ingredients in there, and building out a hive mind and the intra-body network of all things. And, here we are, the targeted individuals and our sibling of human trafficking, and, that leads into pedophilia and all those things as well. The gang stalking, the FBI's TSDB, the terrorist screening database, where our names are, the fusion centers connected to the gang stalking. We've got the civilians having Havana syndrome and anomalous health incidents and directed energy weapons that are a part of these PSYOP programs, and the 6G in the personal area network. All of these things are swirling there, but the patents and the research are out there for anyone in the public to go see. But nobody has connected the dots in the mass, spotlight forum, right? It makes me think back to something a video that I recently watched, where Dr. Lindbergh and Robert Duncan were discussing things. And Robert Duncan had stated that the greatest cover-up has existed, which is, what we are, those targeted individuals, these PSYOP programs, due to what the government deemed as necessary sacrificial experimentation on humans to study the transhumanism and to stay ahead of the competing countries such as China and Russia, deeming it and excusing it as necessary for future generations. He also mentioned in that video that the art of war, right? And war is controlling the enemy. And can it be said that war is also controlling the mind? And instead of physical wars, we're going into cognitive wars? Just some food for thought. As an analyst, I'm always asking questions. I'm very inquisitive. So this is how I'm wired. So the art of war is to have your enemy believe you are weak when you are strong. To have the enemy believe you are near when you are far. To have the enemy believe you are disorganized when you are smart and strategic. And doesn't that kind of set the stage of how these PSYOP programs are designed and being used against us? And that's why I wanted to merely mention that. So it just makes you wonder that, are these recent events and revealings just another experiment to see and gauge how the general public responds to topics that have been hidden or previously deemed conspiracy theory? Because now these conspiracies are coming to be truths, right? So, and with these revealings, it induces shock factor, right? Insecurities, uncertainties about the future, what's to come, what's next. Potentially, who knows, maybe priming for a little bit of, mind control. Because with that shock and fear and insecurity, that kind of primes the mind to be overtaken. Was it not shock factor and insecurity, a tactic that was used on us? We have to think big picture here. Because sometimes we can get so under the wave of all the details coming out, then we kind of get sucked into it. But we need to be able to pull ourselves back and look at the big picture. And so maybe it could be that this is a test to see at the levels of digestibility of this new information, the emotional responses. Who knows? Are they being remote neural monitored in the reactions? Or at least, at minimum, through social media interactions to gauge it. If anyone in this world understands what it's like to be covertly monitored, it is us. So all of these distractions, are they leading people into a bullpen? I mean, let's not forget the billions announced that are being poured into AI and mNRA, keeping that competitive edge over other countries with this technology. We get introduced to that, but then we were rerouted to these other findings, the list and the declassified documents. We will be told that Will we be told that DNA modification and mass surveillance are in our best interest? This is where you have to keep that openness to always question, be inquisitive, and that way you're not anchored in, because again, you've got to think of everybody's emotions that have not heard any of this information, that the covert exists. Because there's a lot circulating in the energy. So that's why God is asking that we stay centered. Okay, we know our truth. We know what's going on as it pertains to us. Being an analyst, until there is tangible proof documentation that matches the mouth, the word spoken, I just remain inquisitive and objective. There's just more questions than there are answers right now, because there's so much uncertainty in things still today. But God wants you to know this. These revelations opened up a door or a vortex for God to intervene and move through. Whether these revelations were done with transparency and good intentions in mind, or under the guise to inspire trust for an alternate agenda, there is no turning back from the door that has been opened, in truth, right? In transparency. Because what has come to light has only been a fraction of what that needs to be revealed. So the door is open and God's going to move more through it. This is where we come into play. We have a very important part in this. We are going to seize this opportune time to fan those flames of truth, of what is hidden that is not being discussed. The PSYOP programs, right? What we are a part of, and what we witness and are bear to witness and endure and to be subjected to 24/7. By what we do, because again, God's going to do heavy lifting. We are going to do our part, which is fanning those flames of truth out for the public, so that we are expanding out and widening that door and that vortex of truth to open up wider and wider. The old systems, programs, lies, and deceptions are crumbling before the world's eyes. It's not good enough anymore to only reveal deceptions in part. We must push forward for the total revealing of what is being done against humanity and all life forms on this earth. It's not just us. It's the trees, the birds, the fish. It's our food. Everything is being blasted and covered with this radiation, okay? We must do this for the children and the future generations. The mass population has been asleep for some time, and this new information can go one of two ways with them. One, a light is going to go off in their head stating what else hasn't been told, and they're going to start researching, and they're going to be a little more open to receive. Or what is number two? It is sensory overload for them, and they would rather stay in slumber and bury their heads in the sand because the thought of the cover-ups are too much for them to digest, and they would rather sit in denial. So you've got two sides of the coin, right? It is those that wish to stay in slumber that are the easiest to be preyed upon. Their minds are easily trainable because they cannot face the truth. They will live in the comfort of the false narrative. We don't live there. Targeted individuals' minds are wired differently. Instead of being entrainable, gullible, right? We are flagged as a threat, something to learn more about and to investigate and study, right? We are the anomaly, not the commonality. There was something so different and challenging about each one of us that we got scooped up and put into these covert programs. Was it our intelligence and our wisdom? Was it that we were free thinkers, different from the typical? Was it our DNA? My goodness. DOD created a program called Soul Scraper that studies people who have what they call the God gene versus the ones that don't, because there was something different about their DNA genetic makeup than the others. So this is us. Our DNA must be different. It is, they're trying to figure it out. Was it our divine gifts that God blessed us with? Was it that we were loners, had limited circle of friends and family, thought that we were, easy to isolate? Was it because we were empathic and possessed accelerated senses? Was it we were considered revolutionaries? Was it related to our occupation and knowledge? Was it we were labeled conspiracy theorists, also known as truth seekers, because we can tell things don't add up, something's not computing? Was it that we opted for alternate health and healing modalities over traditional or pharmaceutical? These are the questions, right? So if you answered, guessed and identified yourself as, one or more of those, it explains things. It kind of puts it in perspective. Glory to God for that, right? Regardless of the why, we need to know that we are special. We had something they wanted so bad that they decided to try to hack into us and test us, because others would have been a common, ordinary result. But here we are, still standing like a boss, non-relenting for our personal liberation from the shackles of the oppressive mind games and torture being done against us. To master the game being played against our minds and bodies, you must come to the realization that we are in a government simulation, okay, that challenges us to face ourselves. They hijacked our minds, thoughts, insecurities, fears, grief, pain, emotions, trauma, and desires to blueprint out an obstacle gauntlet course to test and see if we can level up and master it. Again, we are the uncommonality, not the commonality. Instead of being, but fools they are, right? Instead of being the rats navigating through the maze to get to a little morsel of cheese, we are gnawing through the wood of the maze and saying, to hell with that confined box. The game is mediocre and we refuse to play because we are enlightened under the armor and protection of God and all the heavens to see through this illusion, these assimilations portray. We are removing ourselves from the falsities of the game being played on our lives. Remember, the last response and emotional trigger we gave the AI is the next one the AI will use against you. If the AI doesn't get a response, it will try something that worked before. It will go around the carousel of other responses, triggers, traumas to find one that will produce the result desired. Do not feed your fears. Feed your spirit, okay? You must think in terms of how a computer program is being used to bait and torment you. You can strategically outmaneuver a cycle pattern algorithm driven by a program that only has one motive goal, which is to destroy you, to isolate you, to lead you to self-harm or harm of others, to character assassinate you, discredit you, and disempower you and how you perceive yourself. This is a program. You can overthrow it by leveling up. You are the code. Therefore, you are the decoder. God told me early on, if I get to the root of the hurt, what they're using to gaslight me with, it wouldn't hurt me anymore. What does that mean? Took me a minute to figure that out. I needed to start digging into my triggers to release them. Everything that happened since your birth, good, bad, or indifferent, was a teacher preparing you for this very moment, this timeline of existence. And I'm going to give you an example. For me, as a child, I was always overweight. I was the chubby one, right? I was a target for bullying from childhood, and it followed me on. My parents loved me very much, but they were very super critical. My mother was very transparent. Anytime somebody told her about my weight or appearance or something I was doing, she was going to share that with me as a young child. So I look at that, and it prepared me for this, because I have voice to skull. It prepared me for the bullying. I'm like, this isn't nothing new to me. This is like a long lost friend called bully that has come up in my adulthood trying to gaslight me yet again. And that was a teacher. It was like, you know what? I need to seek internal approval, not external approval. That is what this torture of this gaslighting and all these absurdities and these lewd remarks and things, what it does is it really can help. You can leverage it, you can flip it, and make it start doing some self-reflection and self-authenticity and awareness. Another thing I will share with you, I was still a teenager, yet an older teenager. I was 19 years old and was still at home, and my father died suddenly in his sleep. My mother busted through my bedroom. It's a sound that I'll never forget. Telling me he's not breathing, he's dead. It was in that very moment. My mother is melting down. She cannot do anything. She is stricken by fear. In that very moment, I had to step up and be the handler. And meaning, even at that young age, maybe my mind wasn't really equipped or ready to handle that. But I was placed in the role of an adult that had to take it because my mother couldn't. She was crumbling right in front of me. I had to go in and assess. I had to check and see if he was breathing. I had to call 911. I had to listen to them instruct me that I needed to do CPR. But then when I turned him, I knew he had been gone, and it had been probably hours, right? I had to take on a very huge responsibility in that moment. And from that moment forward, it never left me. I was always the handler. I became the handler of all. I had to call family. My mother couldn't do it. My mother didn't drive. She didn't want to. She didn't want to become independent. I had to handle that. I had to be the wheels. I had to make sure that she had everything that she needed. I needed to handle those big things, like what my father used to do and used to handle too. That became my new role. And I will tell you this, people, and this is why I tell you this, because that is trauma. And that trauma set off, and how it materialized in my body was symptoms of a sore throat that wouldn't go away, and it was for months, which led into where I found, it took many doctors, that it triggered the dormant Epstein-Barr virus, also known as chronic fatigue, which is an autoimmune disease. Okay. So that triggered that in me, right? That whole event. And that led into thyroid and all these things. So my point of all it is a teacher. It showed me that there was trauma there. And guess what? The V2K and this design PSYOP program used that to gaslight me with, right? The shameful things, trying to pretend that they were my dead father doing atrocities against my body when it was directed energy. I mean, these are the depths of what these programs will go into. It's just like the bowels of existence, evil, right? So again, that experience toughened me up. I was the handler, you know. And that meant that when things came my way, I didn't see any other option but having to deal with it and find a way and a path through it. Again, a teacher, which led to these programs attacking me, because that was still my mindset. Okay, I've got to figure this out. I've got to find a path. I got to find a way. I need to move forward. It's unacceptable. I have to move forward, right? So I want you to start thinking about the things of your past and how those could actually be what is working in your favor, because they were your teachers that led up to this experience. And it's like taking those ashes of the past and turning them into our favor, that they made us stronger, resilient, intelligent, wiser, fully capable of overturning and tripping a cognitive hoax that's being used against us. Because remember, we are still standing like a boss right now. We have the responsibility, through what we have learned from being a targeted individual and what we've learned from others within the community, to pay it forward, to take the edge off of those new to being targeted, and introduce this hidden knowledge to the masses that are unaware. I mean, when you were going through all of this and you didn't know what was going on, wouldn't you just want someone like us to just have been there and help kind of, shave off some of that torture, that and all the things that you go through as a targeted individual? Wouldn't you have wanted someone to just reach out and give you a hand? And some of us have. But this is why we have to keep this momentum going, so that we can grab on to those new just now coming into this, trying to figure out what is going on, and they know something is. So let me bring up, I've discussed this before, the stages of being a targeted individual. Now, I did a podcast on this, and I've added a couple layers in here because I thought they were important. So you need to kind of like look at this document, kind of gauge where you are, because what we don't want is stagnation, because stagnation is death, right? We need to keep progressing and moving forward. We don't want to stay stuck too long, because I know in some of these stages, it took me a long time, and it was just, there's better use of our energy. We need to just keep progressing. So in the initial stages, the red, this is where we're just the most vulnerable, is the impact and shock, the denial, the rejection that we're receiving from our family, from doctors, all this, swirling around. Then we get anger. Anger, that's where I sat a long time. Self-destruction, making poor choices that are, destructive, not constructive. So then we kind of get into that medium phase of bargaining. We're just wanting it to end. We're reaching out to God. We're going through grief and depression. We're just like, oh man, we just want our life back. And, we're still, grappling with it, and we're feeling guilty and shame, even though it wasn't something that we did. It was something being done against us. So where we want to lead into is that acceptance of, okay, this is happening. This is real. Now I need a plan. I need to navigate. We need to go inward. We need to self-reflect. We need to start dealing with the demons that they're gaslighting us with, which is our own stuff, right? Our trauma, our triggers, all of this stuff they stole from us. And we need to start releasing it to create space for new to come in. Our self-care, our well-being, making sure that we nurture ourselves and set aside time for ourselves in a healthy way. And where we want to land is having the hope. All right, God's doing the heavy lifting. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to be a part of the community. I'm going to make friends within the community, because it doesn't matter what the external says about us. We know this is real. So we're going to stay with our community and understanding that, yes, we're all one in unity here. And we want to start to heal. We have to have hope and healing. This is our end goal. We have to get there. We have to get there. All the fire that's swirling around with the general public, we can't get swept up into it. We need to be centered on where we are right here, because we're anchors, okay? We are the anchors. We got to hold the line. We need to heed the call. We need to ascend. We need to accelerate ourselves out of these tethered shackles of oppression. We need to understand the game that is being done against us, and we need to forge our path. And our path is awareness. Okay. We have to know that what these sub-levels of that iceberg, again, let's bring those back. All that stuff that's in blue is just kind of like the sun hitting that outer layer of that iceberg. And those sub-levels of long-standing, many years of covert PSYOP programs that are used on civilians for research and experimentation, for learning and recording results and feeding AI. Come on, yeah, feeding the AI to admit these programs have existed for so long is something that's highly guarded by the powers that be, right? It's very protected. It takes brave souls who participated or are in the know firsthand to come forward. God is working on their hearts, okay, to come forward. Although some may reveal to save their own skins, but that's okay. All the better for us. It needs to come out to light. No matter, more is going to come to light. That's God's promise for us. God has a plan. We need to trust in God and the universe, not in flesh, because flesh has disappointed us so much, right? Not to say that there's good eggs out there that are coming forward, and those that are very empathetic to what we're going through, and they're open. But there's going to be more that's going to come forward as well in the masses. We must not speculate how the targeting programs will be revealed. This is something that God kind of put on my heart, because when we have an expectation of how it may be revealed, we might be limiting it. Wow, that's really profound, because I was like, okay, I need expansion on that. So how would we be limiting it if we have an expectation that it's going to end? But it's not the how that it ends that we need to latch onto, because we want to create that space for God's brilliance to be shown through in the ending of these targeted programs and how it gets revealed, because our mortal minds are nothing in compare of the power of God in the universe to unfold something in a way that we may not have even thought of, because the all-seeing, all-knowing, past, present, future, time is just relative to God, right? It is going to be so much more profound of going his way. So let's just be open to how it may materialize, is what I'm trying to say. And just simply trust. It will. That door has been opened. It cannot be closed. The light is going to continue to shine through, because it has to. It's got to get through that mid layer that's on the screen. It's got to get down below in the deep depths of the surfaces underground, right? To expose all of these other things into greater awareness. And it will. We also must be mindful that if the general public knew that these targeting programs exist, it could inspire a bit of anarchy, right? But we need to be prepared for the unknown, every unknown, and be flexible to ride the waves, all the while staying centered, connected, even amongst the chaos. Else we will be swept up with the waves of others' emotions and outrage as they become aware that the unthinkable is reality. Our job, again, just continue spreading that light and the awareness. We demand our voices and stories to be heard. I mean, ask yourself, what action have I taken today? I do this daily to spread the awareness, because it only takes a few seconds to, share, to post, to tag, share your thoughts and what you've gone through during the day as a targeted individual on social media. We need to shout so loud that no one can refuse us. We are the squeaky wheel that commands attention. We are not going anywhere. We are fully leveraging this experience in its totality right now in this moment. This is the great collapse of the deceptive world. We are establishing a new baseline of higher consciousness through self-awareness and healing. We are holding the line, and we will continue spreading awareness. I want you to start asking yourself these questions. What would you do if the targeting ended tomorrow? Would you still be fighting for humanity? I would. Every last person needs to claim victory over this oppression. It's just not the United States. It's a global issue. So we're going to keep fanning those flames. What would your life look like if it stopped tomorrow? What I want you to focus in on is, even if it ended tomorrow, you still need to address your healing, because this was trauma. This experience was trauma. It was very triggering. So what I'm trying to say is, why hold off on waiting for it to end to start healing now? And this is where we can take on that for ourselves, for our bodies and our health. We can embrace that now. Trauma is stored in at the cellular level, and it leads into symptoms. I know that firsthand by the trauma that I experienced when I was very young. That triggered a dormant Epstein-Barr virus and activated it into autoimmune disease and everything that has come since then. as a result of autoimmune disease. So every day I'm peeling back the layers and trying to let go and to release and trying to be holistic in my approach to nurturing my temple, my body, right? That's what you have to do for yourself as well. This is how we help others. This is how we help heal others, by healing ourselves. This is how we heal our ancestors, where maybe they were challenged with things and it got passed on to us, and we're the ones that were meant to break it and to break the chain and the cycle. You have the power to do that. You have to remember that targeted individuals are ahead of the curve. We are the uncommon mind. We're going to seek that internal validation through self-awareness and healing. And we're going to not focus on external validation, right? But we are expecting and demanding that these programs will be exposed. What I mean by external validation is needing someone else to say that you're worthy, needing someone else to approve of you, needing someone else to tell you that you're, of worth, of value. That's all garbage. That comes in from the inside. We don't need anybody to tell us that we're special, that we're gifted, that we're intelligent, that we matter, that our voice matters. We are God's creation. We are a unique thumbprint, okay? Each and every one of us have the same right to be on this earth, and we are all special. Those who choose to do wickedness will be exposed. In closing, I want to say that, life is a journey. It's a maze. It's a test, right? It's one right after another. If we fail, we repeat. We will be presented that same challenge again and tested again until we can get it right and master it. So don't get caught up in the loops of these targeted programs, okay? The purpose of life is to learn and to expand our limits and to push our own envelope, to gain wisdom about ourselves and to cultivate a relationship with a higher power existence that is outside of a flesh suit. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, okay? We co-create and become liberated and self-aware. We believe in ourselves to the point that no opinion, judgment, or isolation, or trick, or deception can penetrate the armor of truth that covers us. All of these attempts will simply roll off like water on a duck's back. And behind all the pain is wisdom gained about who you are. And you take that pain and you transform it into fire, passion, to exceed, to excel, and create a new chapter in your story. The chapter where you ventured down the path to becoming your greatest hero, and who's accompanying you? God in the universe, in the heavens. They're along for the ride. I say this with such importance. Your story is another person's lifeline right now. Let me say that again. Your story is another person's lifeline right now. Your story is the rope being thrown down into the dark, scary pit they are in, assisting them to climb out. You matter. Your voice matters. Use it. Spread awareness. I thank you for listening to me today. I felt this was why there was no guest today. God put this on my heart, and it has been a while since it was just you and I. So I wanted to share this wisdom that God imparted upon me. And let's take to some comments here. I'm going to remove the current screen. But before I do that, I want to, no, let's go to comments. Here we go. 111th Street. AI. They trigger AI by saying, I never went to your training schools, colleges, but still helped make me stronger spiritually. Thank you, CIA. AI will say, how can you say that? You cannot say that. Well, you just did, right? Way to go. That was great. Love it. Town Crier. The game is mediocre. Spoken like a true boss. That's right. We are all bosses of this. I mean, we are on to the game. We are leveling up. We are masters of it. Here we go. Dustin says, the details are the important thing. They want us to commit suicide on one hand or be irrelevant to their profit margins. Exactly. It's all end goal for them, right? Behind all of this is power, control, greed, lust, and God, all those other evil things, right? There's such deception behind all of that. So we're reclaiming our power. Okay, out of the blue, do you know the graphene detox? If so, how do you detox? This is something that I really wanted to bring up your comment because it's something that I am researching. I know Dr. Anna, who is affiliated with Targeted Justice, has a book on transhumanism and detoxing from the graphene, and the nano is in her book. I'm looking into that as well. I know that I can say personally, the research that I've done with detox, you kind of want to go low and slow. Too much at one time can trip your system up. You can have a lot of adverse effects. So again, I'm looking into her detox program. Me personally, I have been on a detox program through the Pampa program. And I'm on the brain phase, which is EDTA and some ANA. So I'm trying that out, but I'm looking into methylation. The methylene, was it methylene blue? Yes. And of course, DMSA is also good. There's a lot, but what I learned in the program that I'm in is you want to try to avoid the adverse symptoms in your body. So you go slow and low, and you do cycles. And so the cycle that I do is like 3 on, 11 days off in the brain phase, which is pulling out heavy metals because metals are everywhere and everything. So I am continuing to research that. So when I feel confident in that research that I can present it, I definitely will, but I am looking into it. Let's take a look. There's a lot of people thanking me for what I do, and I thank you. I thank each and every one of you. You're very supportive. As a community, I see you lifting one another up in the chats. That's what we do. We don't have time to bicker with one another, and we have the right to have our own philosophies and beliefs of what is being done to us. There's in the grand scale of things, there could be a number of ways that this is being done to us, and it could be different, and it could vary from individual to individual based off of to whatever program or handlers that were assigned to you, right? So we need to keep an open mind. It's not a one answer for everybody, right? So just be open-minded. We don't need to tear one another down for certain. All right. Okay. Targeted individual says, if my targeted ended tomorrow, I'm going to work on myself and mind my business. Well, I'm going to continue. I want everybody to get healing. So I'm going to continue to, I would continue the podcast, and I would continue to bring out healing modalities for everyone. We need to release the trauma of this experience. We don't need, it's not something we need to carry. We didn't ask for this. It was put upon us. So I believe in everybody being liberated and healed from trauma that this experience brings. In the meantime, I'm going to continue daily to work on my own inner healing, because it's layers. Some of this stuff we inherited when we were born. Some of it, we inherited after we were born. And it's all these things along the way that life has thrown at us, right? So it's just not a one and done. We got to keep chipping away at it, because we ourselves are an iceberg as well. And how we respond and our triggers and what we've gone through, including this experience, is something that we need to continuously work on. Cool Breeze Tony, hi, how you doing? He says hibiscus tea is great to calm the nervous system and the blood pressure. Yes. And I've learned from Faye Ellen, who was a guest on the podcast too, that lemon balm is also good for, lemon balm tea is good for relieving anxiety and calming, chamomile. So I want to get into some very exciting news about some guests that I will be having on the podcast. I'm going to add this slide back up. So on March 2nd, Amy Holman will be here on the podcast. She is the founder of Amy's Audios, and she is just such a forensic expert in subliminal acoustic fingerprinting. And she is a forensic technician that can capture the telecommunications of hacker stalkers, sex traffickers, and electronic harassment. It's amazing when she has researched some of these frequencies and what they have led to. So she traces back frequencies. So she's one that you want to hear talk. She'll kind of explain how she does what she does. And on March 9th, Jill Amick, she was scheduled for last week, but Richard had stepped in and wanted to give government updates. So Jill will be here on March 9th, and she's the Vice President of Government Outreach for Targeted Justice. Her team works on projects, and she will discuss those projects with us, in addition to projects that she is currently recruiting volunteers for. And on March 16th, it will be the return of Faye Ellen. She is our resident herbal remedy specialist, and Faye will discuss the methods in which you can prepare and make the herbal remedies. So she'll have some great tips for us there. And I also wanted to announce that outside of the Chosen Hero podcast, I am partnering with Jamie Rice, and we're going to launch off a bi-weekly work session on Saturdays, which is going to be titled Targeted Individual Combat Training, which again is focusing on that inner awareness and healing and strategies to combat the day-to-day of these programs that are being used against us. So I had did a survey on my X channel, The Chosen Heroes, and got interest on it. And I did not know, because I was relatively new to X, that those polls are anonymous. My bad. So people had voted that they were interested in, the time frame. I said bi-weekly, weekly, monthly, and such, but I have no way of knowing who. So if you would, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put another post out on my X and asked who would like to sign up. And then that way I know how to contact you with the link and details. And what it's going to be is more like a conference call where there's live interaction. between, after the content that is presented. And it is about working through, your own, trauma, and giving you those tactical tactics to counter some of what you're experiencing. So for those that are interested in sign up and want to be contacted with the link to join the call, and please email me at chosen_heroes@proton.me for the sign up again, or respond on my X post. I'm not doing another survey, so I will see who you are. And the kickoff for that meeting, the first initial meeting, will begin on March 29th. Again, it's outside of the Chosen Heroes, and it's going to be a bi-weekly working session. It's live participation. You get to start working on your inner healing and journey there. And sorry, that was a duplicate there. Please subscribe, follow, and like. I'm on several platforms. I've got X, I have Rumble, I have the email, chosen_heroes@proton.me. The YouTube channel also is out there. So it's an easy repository that you can go out and just play past podcast. It's all right there. I do have a Facebook group, Chosen Heroes. Facebook just seems to not gain much. There's a lot of not as good stuff there, I guess is what I'd say. And Instagram, A Chosen Hero. I will, post little shorts and such out there as well. And again, I am just so blessed and honored to be here each Sunday, and I'm so grateful of your time. We are so strong. We're going to stand our ground. We're going to spread the waves of awareness and truth. We're going to share and make it known, make our voices heard. We are the squeaky wheel. We demand attention. We deserve that attention. So we will never relent or surrender until we receive it. And God will do the heavy lifting. We will do our part. God bless each and every one of you. As always, I love each and every one of you, and I pray for you each day. We've got this. Remember, you are a boss.